Hello everyone. Welcome to the 11th web webinar, DiBiCoo Webinar Seminar Series. The topics today, the theme is related to biogas plants. We'll discuss, our speakers will share insights on the legal framework conditions and also on policy considerations. With the two speakers on board, after that, we are also going to have the panel discussions that will further share their insights on these topics. Yeah. So allow me to welcome our speakers today. For today, we have Marco Glacomazi from European Biogas Association. And we have Ohe Hilbert with us today as well. He will share his insights regarding the topics on the legal framework and policies considerations. And Ohe is from the researchers, he is a researcher and consultant from Inter Argentina. Yeah. And for today as well, we have our panelists. We have panelists, Paul Butar-Butar, he's from IRIT, and he's from the Indonesia Research Institute of Decarbonizations. And we have Brooke. Brooke is from Chiang Mai University, Thailand, and Tawanda from Green Cape, South Africa. And we have Wonbosens from ICA Addis, Ethiopia, followed by Mutala Mohammed from Institute of Sustainable Energy and Environmental Solutions, Ghana. So we hope you will stay tuned with us to learn the sharings with this webinar series. So these are the highlights of today's agenda. We will have a first speaker will give a descriptions on the European legal, institutional and policy framework, followed by the second speaker that will talk about the potentials of Argentine biogas to contribute to the fulfillment of Argentina's NDC's contributions under the Paris Agreement. We will follow by Q&A, then the panel discussion. So stay tuned with us. Before we start our webinar, I want to highlight some webinar norms. When you want to ask questions, appreciate by typing in the question box of the screen, and to keep your question clear and concise, and follow the chat room as one of me as the moderators will address your questions to the panel. And we will keep to the time, and also all the data collected is used for identifications and notification purposes only, and will not be used for other purposes by the organizer. And for this series, recorded presentation will be made available on DiBiCoo websites for future reference. So without further ado, let us hear from our first speaker, first presentations. I would like to welcome Marco to give us some insights on the descriptions of European legal and institutional and policy framework. All to you, Marco.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time where you are attending this webinar. I hope you can see my screen and that you can hear me. I just wanted, first of all, to thank Susanna and Mohammed to inviting me to take part in this webinar. Me myself, I appreciate to exchange and to meet people from all around the world. Myself, I consider a globetrotter because I come from Italy. I work in Brussels, but at the moment I also live in Czech Republic. So with no further ado, I will start my presentation to talk about the European framework on biogas and biomethane. First, just a few introductory remarks about the European Biogas Association for those of you who don't know it yet. The EBA is a membership association with 40 national biogas associations and 130 partners from the private sector, being them companies, research institutes, financial institutions, etc. At the moment, we cover more than 30 countries in Europe and in other continents, such as in North America and in Asia, representing over 7,000 stakeholders along the whole supply chain. And we are based in Brussels, at the heart of the European Union since 2009. We are promoting with the politicians and stakeholders the renewable gas biomethane, which is an horizontal gain and success for the environment, the economy, and the society. The applications and the value chain on biomethane are incredibly long and important. It's a product for sustainable energy that is important and relevant for agriculture, for energy, for the industry and transport. And it allows to achieve different benefits and positive impacts, of which I am sure our speakers will also give more insight than what I can do. But just for giving you a few keywords, it starts the production of biomethane from caring about the environment, from protection of biodiversity, and to reduce land use change and enhance soil fertility. Is a good instrument for reducing the pollution of air, in particular of pollutants such as nitrogen and methane, and is therefore a very good enabler of adaptation and mitigation to climate change. And at the same time, it provides very effective and efficient mean for a sustainable transition towards 2030 and the final goal of climate neutrality in 2050. I will give more details about these goals in a few slides. For the moment, I wanted to focus again on the circularity and the whole picture of biomethane, which is crucial to understand the benefit and the potential of this solution, because it is created out of waste and residues, which can come either from household, industry. It can be created out of sewage sludge and wastewaters, and out of sustainable crops, which do not displace the production of food and feed, or that are used for the maintenance of quality of soil. In particular, this solution is extremely local because given the feedstock, it's very difficult to imagine an economic rationale to ship from one continent to the other big quantities of waste and residues. And for this reason, the main logic for this business to happen is at the local level, because it's more economically feasible, and it also deliver more benefit for the society. From the same local area where the feedstock is sourced, is possible then through anaerobic digestion to deliver energy in the form of electricity or heat, or in the form of biomethane, which is directly injected in the gas grid, which is local, or at the moment there are also off-grid solutions that can be provided to farms, for instance. And the second, but nonetheless no less important element of this circle is the digestate, which can be returned to the farm to fertilize the land, reducing therefore the need for mineral fertilizers, and reducing also the associated greenhouse gas emission for extraction of raw materials and for the processing of these elements. This picture, this table, which was prepared by my colleagues, and is included in the statistical report of the European Biogas Association of last year, shows the estimated biomethane production in 2030, in 2040, and in 2050, according to different independent studies. The numbers are presented as yearly production potential, both in two metrics. One is billion cubic meters and the other one is terawatt hour. We couldn't have both figures in these studies, so sometimes we estimated the conversion on our own based on the calorific value of biomethane. And what is very interesting is, although there are different assumption and methodological instruments for getting to these numbers, all authors, all studies, all reports reach very similar conclusions regarding the potential of biomethane production in the future. It is meant to raise. It is meant to getting bigger and bigger. And there is a consensus that by 2030, in the next 10 years, the biogas and biomethane sectors combined can almost double their current production. And by 2050, the figure will actually increase just in Europe by 4 times. At the moment, biomethane, as I mentioned before, is a very good instrument for decarbonization and for climate mitigation and adaptation. One of the main application for this product is the transport sector, so it's helpful to decarbonize car, trucks, but also aviation and shipping. And there is solid evidence, many studies have been published about the excellent environmental performance of biomethane over the life cycle, meaning that it can compete not only with fossil fuels, but also with other renewable alternatives, such as wind power and electricity. But this is not always recognized at political level, where the rules for decarbonization and the emissions for decarbonization are not regulated, are not monitored only over the life cycle of the fuel, but also at the emission from the vehicle. And in that case, of course, electricity being zero emission has an advantage over biomethane. But as we will see in a few slides, there are new developments also in that regard. I wanted to mention just quickly before that biomethane is incredibly relevant for shipping, for marine transport, and in particular for the long transport. We see currently in Europe a very big potential for either intra-EU, European Union shipping, or even better outside the Europe continent. At the moment, the liquefied natural gas is better, is more sustainable in terms of emission compared to the traditional oil-based fuels, which means that liquefied biomethane can even have a carbon negative impact, and therefore even not only reducing emission, but even preventing emission compared to the fossil fuels. And we estimate a global potential for this around 1,380 billion cubic meters by 2050. And of this, 50 will be produced probably and consumed in Europe. As I mentioned, there are developments at the legislative and regulatory level to create a level playing field and equalize biomethane with other renewable solutions, such as electricity. In Spain, for instance, there is a proposal of a legislation to recognize for the first time biomethane mobility as greenhouse gas emission, such as the same that happens for electricity. Therefore, the new decree, the new rule encourage decarbonization of public transport, not only through electrification, but also through the use of other alternatives, such as biomethane. And very similar is what is happening in Norway, where the parliament is asking the government to allow biogas and biomethane together with electricity and hydrogen to be considered as zero emission, therefore incentivizing the consumption of this fuel to achieve the ambition in terms of climate mitigation in 10 years. Other developments we see in Italy and in Germany. In Europe, last year, the European Commission and the institutions of the European Union adopted a very big financing plan called Recovery and Resilience Plan to recover the economy from the pandemic of the COVID-19. And countries are therefore, member states are allowed to finance the economy for those sectors that were mostly impacted by the consequences. And in Italy, for instance, the recovery plan allocated 2 billion euro to develop rural areas through biogas and biomethane. And in parallel, we expect that new rules will be adopted to promote and encourage production and consumption of sustainable biomethane. In Germany, in May, the government and the parliament adopted the legislation to implement the Renewable Energy Directive of the European Union. There is a reception process by the countries from Brussels. And in this legislation, Germany set a target to reduce the greenhouse gas emission of the transport sector by 2030, raising the target from the current 60% to 22%, which is very ambitious, and they support this choice because they realized that already last year sale at the filling stations were almost 1 terawatt hour, raising from the previous year of 733 gigawatt hour. And considering that almost all compressed natural gas filling stations have now switched to biomethane. Therefore, there is a very big capacity to utilize this fuel and to decarbonize the sector. This table shows exactly the way forward in Germany to achieve the target to reduce greenhouse gas emission. And it was very interesting what the Federal Minister for Environment said the day that the proposal was approved, because she said that they do not want blindly more alternative fuels to the tank, but they want to promote those fuels that are efficient, that are affordable, and then can protect the climate without destroying nature, therefore clearly identifying in this biomethane as a solution. In my few last slides, I would like to talk about the framework that is set at European level. What is the way forward? What is the goal that our member states and industries are trying to achieve? It's everything about greenhouse gas emission and realize what is considered to be the climate neutrality goal for 2050. Last year, the climate law was adopted by the Council and the Parliament, which set a target for 2030 to reduce by 55% net greenhouse gas emissions. Is net greenhouse gas emission because it includes at the same time the reduction of the emission and the increase of the removals of the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere, for instance, through forest or other nature-based solution, carbon capture and storage, etc. By 2025, member states will have also to adopt an intermediate target to 2040, which will be then revised in 2030 and adjusted based on the results. But then everybody knows that by 2050, there is the objective to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. So to incredibly reduce the current emission and to balance the surplus with carbon capture and removals from the atmosphere, for instance, through forest and soil and agriculture. In this slide, you can clearly see that there are three main pillars to achieve the target for 2030. The first one is the ETS, the emission trading system, which applies to many different sectors such as steel making, cement making, a lot of chemical industry, power generation, and the companies that are running under this scheme every year has to reduce their emissions. They have allowances, and if they have a debit of allowance, they need to buy certification that allow them to emit greenhouse gas, and if they have a surplus, they can sell the surplus that they have to the other companies. So the proposal of ETS is to reduce by 61% the emissions of these sectors. And other enabling targets refer to the production of renewable energy, to energy efficiency, and to removals of CO2 from the atmosphere. A second mechanism is another ETS that is created exclusively for buildings and transport. This was the proposal for this mechanism and system was presented on the 14th of July. So it's not in place now. It will be probably starting operation in 2024 or 2025. There will be, of course, a transitionary moment period to understand and to rebalance, but then by 2030 it will be fully functioning. And the third pillar is the effort sharing regulation, which works more or less in the same way as for the ETS, but in this case is not addressed to companies and industries, but to member states. And it includes sectors such as waste, which is, of course, most of the time a public responsibility, but also agriculture, and include also transport and buildings. And in these sectors, member states must achieve a reduction of greenhouse gas emission of 40%. And there are also, in this case, many targets on increasing recycling, reducing disposal of waste, reducing the losses of nutrients and the use of fertilizers, but at the same time increasing, for instance, the use of organic alternatives, which should help member states to achieve this target. I wanted to conclude my presentation by quoting the commissioner for the Green Deal and the climate law, Mr. Frans Timmermans, who said in July that there are no country on the earth that does not want to move on zero emission, but of course not everyone can do it at the same pace. Therefore, it's important that for what we can do, we try to give a right example in order to show the way forward to everyone, and so that they can follow. Nothing which was presented will be easy, but is worth it, and everyone must have the courage to achieve climate neutrality and to tackle the climate change. So this was my presentation. It was a big pleasure, and I give back the floor to Susanna.
Right. Thank you, Marco, for very insightful sharings. For the sharings you shared on the European EU 2030, what are the planning in the pipeline to reduce the net GHG reductions by 50%. So thank you for the insights. So we will come back to you after the second speaker for the Q&A. Yeah. So thank you, Marco. So with this, I would like to invite our second speaker for today's sessions, Ohe. So Ohe, I would like to welcome Ohe to share his insights on the potentials of Argentine biogas to contribute to the fulfillment of the Argentina and NDC contributions under the Paris Agreement. So it's a very interesting topic to learn from Ohe, from your sharing. So off to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to all of the attendees and all that we'll see after this presentation also. I'm not sure which screen I am sharing because this system doesn't let you choose which screen I am sharing. Are you seeing the complete presentation now?
Yes, we can see your presentation. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to put in context the strategy each of the countries must follow. No, you're looking here at two different ways of achieving zero emissions that was mentioned before. No? One is going very fast in the following years and then slowing down in the future, and the other one is beginning to do it very slowly and then speed up in more years to come. So as you see there, the surface and those two curves are completely different. No, and in one we have a lot of emissions occurring from here to zero emissions. No, and we need to go fast and to go quick. And that's the opportunity biogas is giving to all the countries. This is also related with the latest IPCC report warning of larger implication of temperature increase. So we have COVID, we have recession, and we have climate change coming into each of the countries. These are the risks we are confronting. It's not only climate change. You see there ocean acidification. You see undernourishment. You see people displace global ocean oxygen and so on. So our aim working in the last years is trying to include in the national policies biogas and biomethane as one of the policies, of the national policies, in order to contribute to the NDCs. Under the Paris agreements, you see there the targets that were placed in 2015 and the gap we have. No, we have a big gap of what we need to achieve and reality and how we are going. So we need to improve. We need more active policies in all of the countries. Regarding Argentina, there is a huge potential of biogas and biomethane in all the country regarding the use of agro-industrial residues, pork, cattle, dairy, and so on, and also the cover crops that is a new technology that's spreading all over the country. Argentina has more than 90% of agriculture surface under no tillage, so the inclusion
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we? Your presentation is in the presenter mode, not in the.
That's why I asked at the. That's why I asked at the beginning, and they told me it was okay. Sorry.
I think it's in configuration de visualization.
I'm sorry. You should have told me at the beginning.
Sorry for that. Okay.
Okay. So now you're looking at the presentation mode, no?
Yes, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Looking at the Argentina particular policy framework, we have two main laws, one dedicated to biofuels and another one dedicated to renewable electricity. Biogas has been triggered and expanding in the previous administration basically based on renewable electricity. We have a target of 8% of renewable electricity 2006. Unfortunately, the biofuels law faded up this year, and it was replaced by a new law, and this law is going on the wrong direction. Now it's lowering the blending of biofuels in the internal market, and has no definition on biomethane at all. There's is a project situation in Argentina, more than 52 new project plans in the last 4 years, spreading mainly on the central part of the country, and many of them are done in a circular economy framework, where we have mini distilleries of bioethanol, for example, feedlots and biogas, all working together in a circular way, which is very promising. So the latest news are very contradictory. There is a strong lobby of the petrol companies in the country, pushing back policies on renewable energy and especially biofuels. So, and at the state level within the country, there are positive signs of new legislation on the spreading and expansion of different biofuels, including biogas and biomethane. So this is the present situation we are having. Looking at the national contributions of Argentina, we are looking there at the increase of commitments Argentina is making in the framework of the Paris Agreement, lowering its emissions to 2030 and promising carbon neutrality to 2050. No, we also look at the development goals of United Nations and the commitments of the country and the indicators, and following the indicators of those. No, since especially biogas has interaction between different SDGs. You're looking there at different SDGs and how we have cross influence and cross interactions on those goals. There is a picture of renewables in the final consumption, and you see there how different countries are having a very aggressive policy on biofuels. Argentina is one of the 10 countries that has a very good participation of biofuels in the transport sector. So looking at all this framework, we started this year working on and tuning up the emission factors of different alternatives in order to make a whole study on the potential contribution of different blendings of biofuels, looking at the liquid side, and different participation of biogas for electricity and biomethane coming from plants. Now there you see the emission factors we have also developed for the competitive fossil partners, natural gas, compressed natural gas, and liquid petroleum gas. You see here the evolution of vehicular natural gas consumption. In Argentina, we have more than 2.5 million cars running on compressed natural gas. And you see in green there the curve of potential of substitution the potential of substitution that could reach easily the nearly 30% of the total consumption of that fleet. Since there is a lot of uncertainty, also we made sensitivity variation in order to increase or decrease the emission factor of biomethane. Since, as you probably know, for example, looking at the new directive of the European Union, there is a very complex chapter on biogas and biomethane with a lot of numbers there and a lot of variables to be considered. We also made a sensitivity to the emission factor of fossil fuels, since we know that fossil fuels are increasing their carbon footprints, since we are moving from nice and dwells that petrol came up easily to shale gas and shale oil and all those technologies that need a lot of energy, a lot of input in order to take out of the rock the gas and the petrol. Here is one of the charts we constructed. We are looking there at the different potentials of biogas production in the country. You see the different colors. The smallest one considers agroindustrial byproducts. The second one adds livestock effluents. The third one adds agriculture residues, and the fourth adds also sequential cover crops. No, we are not considering here city residues, which is also a huge potential. We are mainly focusing on the agriculture sector, and this give us, if we use all nearly 10 million tons of CO2 equivalent reduction per year. And looking at the national contributions of the country in 2030, looking again at the 100% use of all the potential agro-industrial and agriculture residues, we could achieve nearly 5% of the total NDCs of the country only by using the biogas. If you want to take a look at this report, is free. It's free to download it from ResearchGate. So you're invited to do so. So we need to integrate, to work together. I am chairing the Global Method Initiative, the subcommittee on biogas, and we are strongly involved now in making all the countries introduce into their NDCs and into their national policies the promotion of biomethane and bioelectricity coming from biogas plants. So I invite you to go into the Global Methane Initiative website. We have a lot of tools there and aids to make this happen. The DiBiCoo project, of course, and also the Biogas Done Right is an initiative that we work together with Michigan State University and the Biogas Association of Italy, promoting an holistic view of biogas and how we can achieve negative emissions for this biofuel. Okay, thank you for your attention. Here are my connections. The presentation will be, of course, available, and you can see there the Google site, the YouTube channel where you can see presentations and videos on different aspects I quickly went through during my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge, for the sharings on the initiative, particularly on the NDC initiative by the Argentine country. Yeah. So with this, we have one question. So these questions I open to both speakers. I would like to invite Marco as well to be on board. Then we will proceed with the Q&A. All right. So great. So with this, the first questions we have from the participant who was asking that how biogas can be considered zero emissions. So with that, I'll pass to Marco first to answer. Yeah, your view on the questions.
Well, I don't know now what is exactly the answer that is expected here, if it is must be like a chemical or a technical perspective. I am not an engineer, so I probably lack the, the proper. I don't know if Mr. Hilbert want to say something.
Yes, we have several studies on life cycle assessment on plants in Europe and in Argentina. I can say that depending on the technology and how, especially the digestate is used on farms, and how we can achieve an increase in organic carbon on soils, we not only zero emissions, we surely can provide a biofuel with negative emissions. That means that we capture more carbon that we emit in the whole cycle of the biogas plant, and this comes especially on regarding the increase in carbon on soils. We have a lot of farms in Italy that are performing biogas done right since at least 10 years now, and we have very good examples of increases of 1 to 2% in the carbon content of soil. So that's the answer.
Yeah, there are indeed also, at least in Europe, the situation is that biofuels are assessed with a life cycle methodology that is included in the Renewable Energy Directive. So emissions for the production of the biomass, emission for the extraction, for the processing and transport, as well as emissions of the use of the fuel are included. But there is also the possibility to account for credits. In the sense that if you manage to reduce carbon in a way or in another, you can account for them. This can happen, as Mr. Hilbert said, by replacing mineral fertilizer with organic, therefore reducing those emissions and also enhancing the quality of soil. But for instance, now a very big incentive in Europe is created in bringing manure to the anaerobic digestion, because the storage of manure itself is meant for generating a lot of methane, which is a dangerous gas, which has a very long retention time in the atmosphere. Therefore, if you manage to bring the material to the anaerobic digestion without the storage, you avoid those emissions, and this is reflected in the life cycle, meaning that you are really bringing a change in the business as usual. I wanted to say one last remark, but yeah, it's gone. So I will suggest to move forward.
Yes, thank you for their answers. So I can summarize that the holistic analysis of the the process, right, from the productions up to the storage and utilizations need to be there, right? If I get it, to summarize that, right? So the second question we have here, okay, I just open to any of you, right? Okay, so the question is that how the government can incentivize the developments of biogas plant in rural areas. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Who wants to take the question first?
Yeah, there are several actions in different countries. One action that has been used in many countries is a feed-in tariff to promote initially the use of bioelectricity and make them compete with other lower price electricity that you can obtain from solar of wind energy. Enlarging the the particularity of biogas that you can have electricity the 24 hours of the day without interruptions, and this is a very important baseline. And another important also thing that is being studied in Europe and in different countries is the possibility of storing methane within the grid of natural gas. Is an enormous possibility of having a buffer of, and this is also very important. The other way to promote is introducing the compressed natural gas or liquid natural gas into the transport sector. There are a lot of actions taking place in many countries to introduce liquid renewable liquid gas or renewable compressed gas into vehicles. The technology is already there, is available, and also this can be combined with and we see virtual pipes where you have a lot of plants that can compress or can liquefy the gas and send it to a central point. Those are some of the initiatives that we are seeing all over the world.
If I may add to this very nice answer also, that I believe that anaerobic digestion is a technology that became more and more known in the last 10 years. But nevertheless, although the principle is very simple because it's fermentation, it's incredibly useful and is completely innovative and disruptive of agriculture, how you are used to know it. It really allows farmers to be more competitive. They can be more efficient. They can make a terrific and amazing important use of the residues that they have and without producing waste. So is not only creating energy for themselves and for the society, but it is also limiting other problems, manure and waste being some of them. And it would be nice that incentive schemes, regulatory frameworks acknowledge this potential and create on one side a level playing field with biomethane and other renewable solutions, so that operators have certainty of where their product can go. But at the same time, it's important to establish clear rules, harmonized, fair for everyone, for the sustainable sourcing of feedstock, because we don't want, of course, to see again a big cutting of trees or like other situations of unsustainabilities, but recognizing that through anaerobic digestion, it's possible to enhance biodiversity, to protect soil, and to really contribute to a less polluted environment. But of course, policymakers must be ready to hear and to help also operators to develop new solutions and to experiment them and to recognize them.
Right. Thank you, Marco and Jorge. So, can I get some insights from both of you, right? With this, what are the gaps in the current policy or framework in which it can be filled to, in support for moving these value chains of the biomethane and biogas? Yeah.
I personally, we think in the Global Methane Initiative that we need countries to introduce into their NDCs and into the global indicators biogas as a technology. We see very little countries having a very strong proposal on biomethane and biogas within their NDC. So we are trying to push up. I think there is a need also to make studies, as I show you, for Argentina, for different countries, to see the real potential of biogas and as Marco mentioned, all the indirect effects. If we want to lower down our footprint on food, we know that nearly 45% of the carbon footprint of food is coming from fossil fuel fertilizers. So lowering down the use of fossil fertilizers is a good move also to lower down the carbon footprint of all the food we produce in the world. And the other important issue is lower down the residue emissions we are having. We have a huge emissions on residue that are right over there or in pits or whatever, and we need to capture that and use it. So those two indirect effects are very important.
Thank you.
In Europe, as we discussed before, how biogas can be carbon negative, there is an LCA methodology, a life cycle assessment methodology that allows to keep track of all the phases of the life of the fuel. At the moment, this methodology was created specifically for liquid biofuels, but biomethane is primarily a gaseous biofuels, and the rules at the moment oblige operators to do physical tracking from the point of production to the point of consumption. But once biomethane is injected in the gas grid, it's impossible to have physical tracking. So it's a big hole in the legislation that should be fixed. This is one of the first examples that comes to my mind, but of course, the way to fix the legislation in order to create a more enabling environment could be really many more.
Thank you. Thank you for the answers. So we have further questions here. So I hope we can, because the topic is very interesting. Yeah. So the next question is, how does biomethane, right? If you position it, how does it compete with the LPG, in the market? Yeah. Who wants to answer for this? I open for Jorge.
How it competes
with the liquefied LPG, petroleum gas. In the market.
Okay, you want Marco to begin?
Yeah. Well, I think that if we are talking about renewable gas, of course they are. I think I am not aware of the process for conversion of biomethane to bio LPG in case it exists. But if we are talking about biomethane with the natural LPG, like the two are not really in competition. One is renewable, one is fossil, but at the same time, biomethane is a solution for greening the supply of gas. So they are, how do you say, complementary to each other, and biomethane is definitely a solution to green the gas supply.
Yeah, there is not a single answer to these questions. We have to consider the particular situation of each country. Many countries we have imports of fossil gas into those countries, and that can be replaced by gas produced in the same country, and so saving currency is a very important, especially for developing countries and medium developed countries. That's an important issue. The other important issue is the spreading of the grid in the different countries. Where does the fossil gas reach? If it reaches by pipe, if it reaches by by bottles or whatever, that gives us complete different prices and forms of comparison, and we need to look at that, especially at a regional size within a country. No, so I'm sorry we don't have a single answer to that, but it depends on the case. It can be competitive, and as Marco pointed out, no, we cannot compare a fossil versus a renewable energy, no, in the same level. Fossil energy should have a heavy carbon tax on the price, since society is acquiring a debt by the emission of all these carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Thank you for the response. Another question is that how can we prepare the customers who's very familiar with the LPG, right, towards their requirement to switch to biomethane? So any feedback on that? Yeah.
Yeah, there is no difference between a molecule of methane coming from a biogas plant and coming from a fossil fuel well. No, so there are no difference in the use or any difference in the efficiency or whatever. The processes, we have raw biogas that mainly is a mixture of CO2 and methane. We get rid of the CO2, we are left only with the methane, and when we have pure methane, we can inject it into the grid, and there is no difference at all between one molecule and the other, and you can compress it, you can liquefy it, you can use it in the stove in your home, or if you use it liquid, you can increase 600 times the amount of the density of energy. One of the principal factors that fossil fuels have spread out all over the world is the density of energy they have. With a low volume, we have a lot of energy. So liquid natural gas is a way to achieve a similar energy as a fossil alternative, and that can be used in ships, can be used in trucks, heavy duty farm machinery, or whatever.
Thank you for the encouraging response to have the biomethane transitions towards that, right? So with this, can I just address to Marco? Just now you shared about the European initiative, right, to achieve the 2030 in reducing the net GHG reductions, right? So with that, how can that initiative or the regulations or legal framework from the EU countries to be adopted by others, in terms of their initiative and the legal framework? Yeah, can you
Okay, it's a very nice question, but for a proper answer, probably I should also be aware of how to say how it works in different countries, the decision making process, what are the main challenges, and if we are really talking of a similar society to the European one, with what capacities, also in terms of technology and infrastructure. For sure, it will be important, I guess, to foster cooperation between countries through also international initiatives, and to establish some sort of platform or alliance where a learning process can be fostered and enhanced, not only from Europe to other countries, but vice versa. I am sure that there are a lot of good experiences coming from all over the world that can help us also to understand how to handle and manage better the resources that we have in Europe. I guess exactly the biogas done right is something that was developed in cooperation between Argentina, the Michigan state, and Italy, and this is one of the living examples of how cooperation will bring forward a solution. For sure, I guess that politically is very relevant to adopt targets to set the way forward, to give stakeholders, industry, citizens, civil society a direction, and see how also the society react to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Marco. Ohe, any additional points to that you can share?
No, it's a very European framework. Is brand new, as Marco pointed out. No, there is a need to each of the country adopt into their own legislation all these new movements that are coming. We are seeing the beginning of a new era in the world with all these policies that are also triggering new business, no, as the carbon credits and so on. There is a lot of bilateral things coming up. No, we had yesterday a seminar on the carbon credits on carbon being stored in soils. That's a huge subject, and biogas is very closely related with the possibility of carbon storage. But there is a need to include a lot of technologies, as no tillage, as cover crops. It's not only digested, and also the wise use of digested, not only spreading all over the field, having a lot of emissions, but really doing a professional use of it in soils, using precision agriculture and so on. So we have a lot of tools now available in the world to speed up all this policy that is stepping up.
Thank you, Jorge, for the feedback. I have another questions. Right, the sharings that you share regarding the installations of the biogas, right, in Argentina, right? So it is very interesting. Yeah? So my question is that how you encourage or promote these adaptations, especially to the industry, to work towards that. Can you share your experience, right? Yeah, on that. Yeah.
Yes, this phenomenon of those plants I showed you that spread up in the last 5 years were mainly triggered by a very interesting feed-in tariff on the electrical side. This is not more the case, so we need to look forward to different strategies of promoting the technology. One of them is the synergy between different technologies. We are having more plants working together, bioethanol plants working on starch, corn starch, together with biogas plants, so they can afford to lower down the bioethanol carbon footprint, and they are now achieving more than nearly 75% of greenhouse reduction on the bioethanol, since they are using electricity and they are using thermal energy coming from the biogas plant, and the biogas plant is feed up with the residue of the bioethanol plant. So we have a very nice circle there, and it makes sense for the industry to invest and to enlarge the facilities. So that's one of the way to go forward, I think, and also make a stable policy for a certain amount of years, since the investments are quite high, especially when you use high-tech technology that gives you high efficiency. So that's are the principal topics that that I can show you.
Yeah, thank you. So it gives me, it triggers me that this is more on like integrated approach. Yeah, to have a balance. Like you mentioned just now, is on also go for the ethanol, and we have a biomethane, right? So it means that integrations is the way forward to make there is initiative, to propel in the next level. Yeah. Right. So
Yeah.
thank you for the insightful, yeah, comment and opinion. Right. So I think we have another few minutes for this first round discussion. So I would like to give an opportunities for each of you to have your final three important takeaway or gaps that can push this legal framework to for the biomethane further. Any final words?
Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, probably the something that it is worth repeating is indeed the importance of securing a stable framework in terms of regulations to the operators. In 2016, the European Commission presented a proposal to change the rules for renewable energy production. What then in 2018 became the Renewable Energy Directive number 2. Already in 2016, the European Commission evaluated that in order to decarbonize transport, in order to give biofuels and biomethane the opportunity to develop, to make use of the economies of scale, to make use of technology understanding and become really an efficient solution that do not need the feed-in tariffs or subsidies, but that can become competitive on its own, 15 years were needed. And this was decided in 2016. But now, just 3 years after the adoption of the rules, the Commission is putting forward a new proposal for changing them again. This is, of course, due to very well documented logic to achieve a more ambitious target. So probably the intention of the Commission is good, but yes, first of all, clear regulatory framework is crucial for the development. Second is the use of digestate. It's a very important opportunity next to the production of renewable energy. It's a very innovative field. Recycling and waste are becoming more and more important in our society, especially of organics, which is becoming always more relevant to turn also agriculture more sustainable. So again, integration, as you just pointed out, Susanna, between different sectors and actors, and creating new opportunities where before there were not, and there are really a lot of new developments ongoing also to upgrade digestate to different products to recover certain nutrients from it, or to do simple solid and liquid separation. So digestate require really big investigation, because the benefits from it are really interesting. And last but not least is finding the best way to source sustainable feedstock. The biogas done right is a very good approach that is successfully implemented in Italy and in Argentina, and I think that can be even further developed to be adapted also to different climate conditions.
Yeah. Thank you, Marco, for the nice summary. So now let's hear from Jorge. Yeah, we want to hear from you, Jorge. Yeah, as well. You forgot to unmute your mic. Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
Thank you, Marco, for this broad and complete perspective. I also agree that stabilizing the policy in the following years is very important for investors to see clearly what they expect and enlarge their investments. The other point you mentioned regarding the digestate, I think there is a huge opportunity, not only as fertilizer, but other products can come up from digestate. I saw many technologies popping up now regarding foliar fertilizer, regarding bedding for animals that are pasteurized and decrease the amount of antibiotics and medicines that are used for those animals being inside. So also thermal energy. You know, we have a huge amount of thermal energy that can be used. For example, drying forage. For example, I saw in many farms. So we need to increase the amount of incomes of the biogas plants apart from the energy they are producing, since we are competing with very low prices of energy coming from solar and wind energy. So we must be very wise to include more incomes to the whole facility in order to make it economically sustainable in the longer term. And the last point I want to make is I think it's very important that all these policies are linked with international commitments, either the national NDCs that within the Paris Agreement and that are presented in the COP in Glasgow this year, or the global goals of United Nations. Since, as I tried to show you, the biogas is addressing several of those goals at the same time, and there we don't have competition with other renewable technologies. No, solar is only electricity, wind is only electricity, and we have the opportunity to address several of those points.
Yeah. Thank you for the sum up of the insights resulting from the presentations, and I hope with this the audience will have now more informations on the potentials of biogas. Like we see that it's not only for electricity, but through integrated approach and by the contributions by many sectors, not only from the policymaker, the industry as well. Then this will will hope to move the change of a biomethane to be complement in terms of the energy, thermal energy, electricity, and also value added products that can derive from it, right? So with this, I would like to thank our excellent speakers, Ohe and Marco, for your contributions, and I would like to say thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So
thank you.
with this,
Thank you, Susan, for your sharing was excellent. Thank you also, and thank you, Marco, for sharing with me the panel.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. So with this, I would like us to move to our next sessions. In the next sessions, we will have panel discussions. So we have several panelists. Okay, I would like to invite our panelists to be on the spotlight here. First and foremost, I would like to invite Paul Butar from the he's the executive directors of Indonesia Renewable Energy Society and also a co-founders of IRIT. Yeah, and our next is Prok Agaransi from Chiang Mai University, Thailand, and he's also the director of Energy Research and Development. And I would like to invite Tawanda. So welcome to their stage here. Tawanda from Green Cape, South Africa, and Won Bersons. Yeah, welcome to the panel discussions, and Mutala Muhammad. So let me confirm that all the panelists are here. Yeah, Mutala. Right. So then we will proceed with the panelists first, and we will start the sessions, right? So thank you for participating in these panel discussions. So from the sharings of our experienced speakers just now, I would like to have an insights, right? How is this scenario in terms of biomethane productions that is how scenario in countries such as Asia, such as South America, that we can learn from each other. So with this, I'd like to first invite Mr. Paul Buta to share your insights on this. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Auntie Yusuf, for this moderation, and also thank you for RDI for inviting me to participate in this panel discussion. The experiences that has been made by Argentina and Europe actually is very encouraging when we look at how the biogas has been developed. In Indonesia itself, the biogas has been developed for quite a long time, especially during the CDM time back in 2006, 2007, when there were a lot of starch plant actually invest in biogas project and used the biogas for electricity production, but some of them used that for heating. In addition to that, also during the CDM time, there were a lot of palm oil company that also had, let's say, invest in treating the wastewater, palm oil mill effluent, and produce the biogas. At the beginning, it was only flare. There are a lot of companies that invest in the project actually only for the purpose of getting the carbon credit. So they only flare the biogas. But later on, when there was opportunity to sell the electricity to the grid, some of the company actually start investing in the gas engine, gas treatment facilities, and gas engine, and they start producing electricity and sell to the state-owned electricity company. But that's the large scale, so-called large scale project where they could generate, for example, 1, 2, up to 3 megawatt of electricity. But the micro scale biogas project have been also developed well in Indonesia, involving a lot of farmers having 2, 3 cattle, and they generate biogas and use the biogas for let's say for cooking and heating. Recently, the biogas development in Indonesia go to the next level. There's already one company that started already improve the quality of the biogas. They produce biomethane and start now using it for transportation. They use let's say they produce bio CNG, and I think with the current condition that it is really difficult to, let's say, sell electricity to the grid, producing biomethane and use it for transportation purpose, that would be actually another options. It might be even much better for the country, especially as you know, in the palm oil mill, they are located in the remote area where they have difficulties in getting, let's say, diesel fuel sometimes. So having biomethane would be a good option for palm oil mill, so that they could convert their let's say trucks and all heavy equipments, diesel generators, and so on. They could use it for their own purpose, for their own transportation. So that would be, I think, that would be the next application for the biogas in Indonesia. Not just using it for biomass for heating or for electricity, but should be used later on for the transportation purpose.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the sharing. So meaning that now it seems that in Indonesia as well, they are moving toward diversifications of the applications of the biomethane, right? As you shared with us. Right.
Yeah, it started already, and we hope actually that will be more and more company looking at this opportunity, so that they really can benefit from the technology producing biomethane and use it for their own use.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for your sharings here. So with this, I would like to extend the questions and the scenario. How is it in Thailand? How is the applications of the biogas, biomethane there? Can Brooke, you give your view here as well? Yep.
Yes. Yep. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, DI, for having me here. It's a pleasure. So in Thailand, biogas has been quite a common practice in terms of livestock farming or agricultural industry right now. Most of the time, it's the social pressure from waste management point of view. But in the same time, the utilization of biogas has been also utilized quite fully. So in Thailand, I can say most of the livestock farms are equipped with biogas system. About 65% of them are producing electricity, but most of the time in the livestock sectors, they are for domestic use or own use, so they cannot afford to really connect to electricity grids. On the other hand, the agriculture industry like palm oil or tapioca or starch factory or other agriculture with a large scale, so they're also equipped with a biogas system, again, most of the time for wastewater management. But then utilization are also very, very extensive. Many of them are selling electricity directly to the grids. About 80% of the industry has biogas system, and about 60% are selling electricity, especially palm oil mills where you have electricity from biomass generation anyway. So the excess electricity from biogas has to be sold to the electricity grid. On the other hand, in a tapioca factory, most of the biogas are interestingly consumed as direct heating in the process. That's also very, very beneficial for the industry, and that increase competitiveness. But when it comes to biomethane itself, Thailand, and I believe it's true for other countries as well, are logistic limited. Meaning in tropical countries, you usually don't have a gas grids, local gas grid, or you only have transmission pipeline and not the local grid where you distribute gas to every household. So in order to really produce biomethane and try to transport that to either transportation station, filling stations or households is very difficult. So in Thailand, there are only 4 commercial compressed biomethane gas stations, and all of them has to transport this gas to a compressed natural gas station by trucks. The only benefit would be those gas stations has to haul natural gas for more than a few hundred kilometers away, where compressed biomethane will be delivered from 20-30 kilometers from the gas station. That's the only situation that this can be benefit. So all in all, I think in terms of biogas production or utilization in Thailand, it's also including Southeast Asia, are quite quite more and more common practice. Most of the time you need infrastructure and policy support in order to really utilize biogas fully.
Thank you, Brooke, for your insights there. Right. So I'd like to know at the current currently, what are the initiative or policies that are available in Thailand that promote these utilizations of biomethane? Can you enlighten us on that? Yeah.
If you go back about 10 years ago, Thailand has implemented direct subsidy to the wastewater owner to support biogas system. For example, you get free 20% of capex from the government just to build a biogas system and to utilize it either way, either electricity or heat or biomethane. But these subsidies are less and less and less. For at the present time, there's no direct subsidy anymore. The government started to send another message, meaning this is a common practice. This is the regulation in terms of waste management that people have to follow. So they are applying pressure rather than incentive to the waste owners right now. On the other hand, the government allowed or issue registration on compressed biomethane gas. That is a big step a few years ago. That right now compressed biomethane gas can be mixed with compressed natural gas at the vehicle gas stations. So all in all, in conclusion, the government is not trying to really support, especially financially, to investment, but they try to regulate and promote people in doing what is good for the environment and the social and society around the facility. That would be my conclusions.
Thank you for the insights there. So with this, I would like to also hear from Tawanda. What's the situations there from your side there? Yeah, Tawanda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. Yeah. I think in South Africa, our situation echoes what the previous two panelists mentioned. So there has been some biogas projects, particularly at wastewater treatment works, for quite a long time in South Africa. But similarly, a lot of those plants just flared off the gas, and there was some application to the CDMs for capturing and burning the gas, because that does in a way reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But I guess more recently there has been a very strong focus towards biogas as a waste management strategy, and although there are a lot of legal challenges in terms of navigating the legislation and policy around implementing those projects, there has been a lot of work across the different levels of government in South Africa in terms of trying to support the growth of the sector. And yeah, so I would say it's a growing sector. There have been many challenges, and a lot of projects have tried to look at generation of electricity, but you have to navigate through legislation around feeding into the grid, around registering with the national energy regulator and so on for the production of electricity. So we've seen more projects start looking at provision of transportation fuels as well. So we're starting to see a wide range of projects. We're seeing a lot of assistance towards project developers in navigating the legislative environment. And we're also seeing the support and collaboration between government and industry in terms of trying to support the growth of the industry in South Africa. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Tawanda, for the very encouraging movement there. That to know that the South Africa is heavily moving towards this legislation, so that it will benefit not only from the economic point of view, but also from the environmental, angle, right? So now with this, I would like to hear what situations in Ethiopia. Can Wanderson, can you share? Yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
okay.
well.
Once again, it is a pleasure for me to be here. My name is Anderson Bogala from Ethiopia. Just to give you a kind of highlight about the biogas sector here in Ethiopia. Of course, domestic biogas has been implemented through the National Biogas Program of Ethiopia, where the intention is that, for example, to produce biogas for clean energy, as well as to use, for example, to use the slurry for agricultural purpose. Normally, that national biogas program has two stages. One has already been completed, which is the national program 1, which is a small scale biogas digester installation for cooking purpose, and approximately 20,000 small scale biogas digester has already been installed. And also that continuation has a national biogas program plus, which is NBPP plus. With that, the intention is also to install additional 36,000 small scale biogas digester, once again for cooking purpose. But in this specific case, there are approximately 14 pilot scale largest size digester, not only for cooking purpose, but also, for example, for electricity generation. Compared to other countries, for example, where biogas has been used for cooking, not only for cooking, but also electricity as well as CHP. And here in Ethiopia, we have to still work very hard, specifically for generation of electricity, as well as also, for example, extracting nutrients from the slurry. And not only that one, as you already know, that Ethiopia is also a signatory part of the Paris Climate Change Agreement. And also with that, we have also an obligation in order to promote, which is called renewable energy. Now, maybe you may also ask what has been done from kind of to promote this biogas sector. Also, the government is trying to implement policy. For example, we already have, which is called energy proclamation, energy policy, that can allow you for the licensing, the agreement, as well as something like that. And also there are some kind of income tax exemption. Not only that one, for example, if you bring some components from abroad, which is related to biogas, also the government is trying to give you additional incentive in order to promote the sectors. Not only that one, for example, we do have also a proclamation, which is an investment proclamation. Maybe they may also give you a kind of land. This is also a very huge opportunity. As you already know, that Ethiopia also received the first unit certified, which is green carbon credit. And maybe to give you also one highlight, nowadays, the national biogas program is governed by or chaired by, which is the Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy. And once again, the way forward is that, we have been planning also to work on production of electricity from biogas, and not only that one, but also to use, the slurry for agricultural parts in collaboration with the Minister of Agriculture. And not only that one, but also, for example, specifically working on the larger scale is very important. One also additional point, till now, we have been focusing as a feedstock, which is cow dung, which is majorly of the Ethiopian small-scale biogas is based on cow dung. But now there are some intentions, specifically, for example, to use, for example, dairy waste, not only that one, but also aviator waste, agricultural waste, and this is also some additional incentive. Of course, there are also some additional incentive coming from the government side for specifically for the private sector who have been working on renewable energy sector. But one final point is, it's also very important. It is a highly funded project from the European Union, And also there are a lot of external stakeholders, for example, CNV, GIZ, which is supporting these sectors to grow in an amazing manner. So thank you very much. Maybe in case also if you have also further question, maybe I will also further enrich it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wallace. It's great to know that actually a lot of initiative has been undertaken, from each country, in positioning the biogas, as transitions toward renewables. Yeah, so we can hear, similarity, of
Cepat
the
deh,
initiative.
kelihatan loh.
Yeah, yeah.
Kelihatan loh.
So, hello. Yeah. So with this, I would like to, to pass the floor to Mutala. Okay. Yeah. What's your, the situations in Ghana in terms of this biogas, yeah, initiative there. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, Mutala. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Better. Clear. Crystal clear.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much. Yeah. So from the Ghana perspective, what I would want to say is that, I mean, with regards to biogas technologies in Ghana, Ghana seems to be concentrating more of using the technology to actually deal with sanitation issues. So that is where you realize that most of these biogas systems that are in the system are actually small-scale biogas technology. But I believe with the coming in of DiBiCoo, I mean, there have been a lot of sensitization and information dissemination on with regards to large-scale biogas digesters. Now, we are happy to have one big biogas project in the country that is actually generating close to about 100 kilowatts of energy, and that is Safisana, Ghana. And they are actually doing it with a municipality where they are able to source their feedstock basically from the market to be able to feed the plant. And in the same way, they are actually doing a cold digestion where they are using the organic waste from the market centers in addition to human feces to be able to generate, and they are feeding into the national grid. I will say that when it comes to policy, I think government has actually been able to do well in that area. I think we already have the Renewable Energy Act at 832 of 2011, which was actually enacted and passed by the government in 2011. Subsequently, there was a Renewable Energy Master Plan of 2015, which was actually supposed to indicate the various targets set by government. And government actually set a target of achieving 10% renewable energy generation into the penetration rather into the energy mix by 2020. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually meet that particular target. So there have been an extension of the target to 2030. And as it stands now, just last month, the director of the renewable energy at the Ministry of Energy, during a presentation highlighted that so far Ghana is able to do close to about, we currently stand at 1.3% renewable in the whole energy mix. I mean, there have been a number of these, but government has put up a number of policies, including the Strategic National Energy Policy, and a lot of incentives, I mean, subsidies are actually provided when it comes to the energy sector. Unfortunately, implementation has been one of the major challenges when it comes to, I mean, some of these policies. So if you take, for example, the GPIC law, that is the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Law, Act 865 of 2013, which was supposed to promote investment in the renewable energy sector. what the Act seeks to do was actually to provide incentive to actually attract renewable energy penetration into the energy mix. So, for example, they give tax holidays, they do locational incentive, investment guarantee, and all that. So any component, I mean, when it comes to renewable energy technology, any equipment or devices that are actually supposed to come into the country to help, I mean, for renewable energy project was actually supposed to be tax-free. Unfortunately, some of these things are actually not, when it comes to practicality, there are issues with that. So that has actually hindered the adoption and the adoption of the technology. In practicality, you don't see it actually working. So I would say that we haven't done that much, but and I have to emphasize that, unfortunately for us, the Renewable Energy Act, which was actually initially had a feed-in tariff system where government set PURC, which is the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, was actually setting tariff for renewable energy project. Unfortunately, just last year, ending of last year, the renewable energy has to go back to Parliament to be amended. And now we have an amended Act 1045 of 2020, which has actually taken out the feed-in tariff system. So now Ghana is now going more of competitive bidding. So a competitive, bidding process when it comes to renewable energy. And secondly, the net metering system has actually also been taken out. So, even though these policies were actually put in place to actually encourage renewable energy adoption in the country, government has sort of like stepped back, because the problem has to do with, the last regime where government signing a lot of PPAs, power purchasing agreement. And most of these power purchasing agreement was more like PPA, take and pay. So what it means is that when the energy is generated, whether government is taking the energy or not, you still have to make commitment to the contract. So there were a lot of these PPAs that has actually been signed. Unfortunately, when the new government came into power with a different political party, they had to go back and review some of these PPA agreements, because they realized that the country was actually losing a lot, because most of these PPAs, some of these power, the energy generating, they were not actually taking some of these energies, but then they still need to fulfill their commitment to the contract. So that actually brought in the issue of reviewing the Renewable Energy Act and all that. So I would say that even though we've said that a little bit, but we are still doing, government is still doing its best to actually encourage the renewable energy adoption in the country. So basically, that is what I have to say when it comes to the Ghana perspective in terms of incentives and regulation in the renewable energy sector in Ghana, particularly with regards to biogas technologies.
Yeah. Thank you, Mutala. So I think we have a question here. Would like to hear from each of the countries representative here that what are the specific NDC target that each country is having, whether you have included it, biogas in the NDC, national determined contributions there, and what are the development goals indicators, right? So can I pass these questions? I open, who wants to address it first? Yeah, about the countries NDC and also on the development goals, as an indicator for this. So Brooke, is it okay for you to give reply on this?
Yes. Yes, we are quite lucky to have, because the government just passed the current approved NDC target for the countries. The target mentions that the business as usual in 2030, Thailand will emit about 550 million tons of CO2. By the mitigation plans that been approved, we should the target would be about 25%, or about 115 tons. Just a part of it is included in biogas sector, turning into megawatts of electricity that would comes around 1,200 megawatts of electricity power, installed power, and that is being dedicated in so-called alternative energy development plan of the country. That's by 2030, the country should have about 1,200. That include waste and wastewater biogas and energy crops biogas as well.
Thank you, Prof. How about the situations in other countries? Who wants to share? Yep.
Yes. The government, let's say, NDC, the NDC that has been, let's say, determined by government, there are some, let's say, sectors that contribute to the emissions. Among others, actually agriculture. So the waste from agriculture would be one of the let's say source of the emissions. And then in the roadmap that has been developed by government for the, let's say, roadmap to meet the NDC target, there are several target that has been described by the government. One of them is really from renewable energy, fuel switching, and fuel switching. In the renewable energy, for example, government target to reduce emissions in the power sector. Renewable energy should contribute up to 120 million ton of CO2, and then there will be emission reduction in the transport sector up to 22 million, and biogas based power plant is intended to contribute to this emission reduction. So that's why government is now preparing the kind of let's say presidential regulations that about the renewable energy tariff. The electricity tariff for biogas power plant is part of it. So in the transportation sector, although it is mentioned that it is specifically using biofuel, but actually it is open for the let's say biomethane, for example, if it is used for the in the transportation sector, it is open for biomethane also to contribute to this to meeting the emission reduction in the transportation sector. So, but the thing is, how important later on is how government will encourage the private sector really to go to this route. So far, apart from the tariff for renewable energy for the power sector, there is no let's say certain policy or incentive that has been provided by government. But I personally expect, because I have been in the carbon market for quite a while, since actually 2006. I expect actually that the market solution would help in let's say providing incentive to private sector to, let's say, go into the biomethane, especially because Indonesia is planning to implement the domestic carbon market. Then it is there will be opportunity later on for the biomethane to supply, let's say, offset in order to meet the requirement in the domestic carbon market, domestic ETS. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. What about? Yeah. Thank you, Paul, for the enlightening us on the situations from Indonesia. And how about other countries in South Africa? What about the NDC specific target for the country? Yeah. Tawanda? Yeah.
Hi. Thank you, Susanna. So in South Africa, we didn't have explicit mention of biogas and biogas technologies, but I think what has happened subsequently is the National Biogas Association, collaboration with the World Biogas Association, have sent a joint letter to the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, just so that they can maybe consider having biogas written explicitly into the NDC. So I think currently at this time it's not explicit, but it may be covered in other sectors.
Thank you, Tawanda. Yeah. So I see here from Ethiopia, Rensen, you want to give some insights on that about the
yes, of course.
Yeah.
So yes. I think based on the report of January 2021, Ethiopia's updated NDC target was approximately 12% greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2030, and normally this is once again related to all the sectors. But coming back to directly, for example, the biogas sector, also based on this, is also coming from the report from the SNV, which is the UN body, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, issued for Ethiopia the certificate for the emission reduction based on the monitoring of the biogas installation from 2016 to 2018 for approximately 4,000 digesters. And in that time, we reduced approximately 34,480 tons of CO2 equivalent. And because of that, we also, Ethiopia government also received approximately 390,000 USD in terms of USD dollar. But also, for example, in terms of, for example, CO2 equivalent reduction, approximately 4.25 tons. And also, it's good to highlight, Ethiopia is also majorly based on hydroelectric. And also, it has also been highlighted that Ethiopia is a country which is among the lowest in the world of CO2 emission per capita, because more than 90% of the CO2 is coming from, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rensen, for the insights. Yeah. So the last, I would like to hear from Ghana Mutala on the NDC. Yeah. Any comment on that? Hello, Mutala.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. So if you look at, I think the first NDC document that the government churned out, that was in 2016. The 2021 is out. Unfortunately, it has not been circulated yet. But then if you look at the emission issues from the waste, particularly from the waste sector, it is actually highlighted that the energy sector is one of the largest contributor to the greenhouse gas emission in the country, because we are heavily dependent on thermal energy generation. So most of our plants are more like, we generate most of our plant, close to about 64% of our generation of energy are from thermal. And that is actually contributing a lot to the greenhouse gas emission in the country. And as part of the solution that was actually highlighted in the NDC document, the Ghana National Determined Contribution document, government actually want to target the waste to energy sector that is trying to actually utilize the waste that is generated, because of the issue of it states that close to about 24% of our greenhouse gas emission come from the waste energy sector. So it's huge. And government is actually pushing its attention to see how best they could actually utilize the waste to be able to generate energy, instead of allowing the waste that is actually being, disposed of indiscriminately. And the environmental impact of indiscriminate waste disposal, where methane gas, is the main component of the gas that is generated. And we know the impact on climate change and all that. So government is actually focusing on that area to see how best they can actually deal with the issue of in terms of reducing the greenhouse gas emission in the country.
Thank you, Mutala. So I think the time is, very empty to us. So I think with this, I would like to, open a final short words from the panelists today on what is your takeaway or your message, the final highlights from each of you for today. Yeah, so I pass to Prue. Yeah, as a summary. Yeah. Prue, you need to unmute. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So every country has their own NDC, so everyone is still working as hard as you can. So I would like to just share more power to everyone that we are on the right track, and methane capturing is one of the most important aspect that we can achieve the target. So I'll be very happy to connect with you, also with the participants that are joining here today. So best of luck to everyone.
Thank you, Brooke. So I pass next to Paul. Yeah.
Yes, I think it is really very important for every countries that really utilizing the waste instead of just creating liability because of the methane emission. It we can turn that into something else, something more beneficial, renewable energy sources. Thinking about the crisis that just having by China, where they are very dependent on coal, with the increased price of coal, what happened to China? So if we have this kind of resources, waste as a resources, we are not only helping the country to reduce emissions, but also helping country to provide renewable energy sources. And we have to think about our net zero emission targets, and we have to use this to utilize the waste to help in meeting the net zero emissions target of each country. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So, okay, Tawanda, I pass to you for the final say. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel. And I think I always find it very interesting, and it's always good to learn from all the different countries, and it's really good to hear about the growth and development of renewable energy and biogas across the different countries. And of course, we're all at our different stages of development. So I think just as a final, just to echo what Paul meant, I think it was Paul who was talking about, we're looking at waste quite differently. I think it's nice to see that other countries are also looking at that aspect. I think in South Africa, for us, over and above just the NDC, we're seeing more progressive legislation, as I mentioned earlier. We've already had bans nationally of liquid waste from landfill, and we're looking at organic bans from landfill in at least one of the provinces in South Africa by 2027. So we're really seeing good progression, and I think hopefully DiBiCoo will contribute more towards the progression and development of biogas projects in South Africa as well. Okay,
thank you, Tawanda. So I pass to Wonderson for the
Okay, thank you very much. I think 65% of, for example, Ethiopian waste is organic waste, which is very much suited for biogas. And I hope we can also learn from this kind of platform to help Ethiopian stakeholders in terms of legal framework, in terms of technology. This can be an amazing opportunity. And also, we really like to share our experience for our stakeholders. They have been doing great. But also, you know, if we do the collaboration work, we can also further improve once again the Ethiopian biogas sectors. Once again, I really also appreciate the platform which is created by DiBiCoo. This will also help us to update what is going on outside. And this is, I hope I can see a path in our future in Ethiopia. And also, we are also eager to help the sector to go ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the final words of wisdom. So can I confirm, Muhammad Mutala, are you there just for short final words? I think we lost him, but anyhow, so I think due to time limitations, I would like to say thank you for all the panelists, and thank you to DiBiCoo for this providing the platform for sharings and learn from each other. So final words here, I would like to thank everybody, yeah, for the speakers, panelists, and the participants. Thank you for staying with us, and there's some notes of housekeeping notes that all this recording can be accessed and your presentation slide at the DiBiCoo website, okay, after the 48 hours, and needs to register to the mailing list on the website as well. And yeah, with that, stay tuned for the next webinar. So thank you all. Thank you for the participations. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Nci.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.